In this video, I'm going to try to help you determine whether you're a leader or a follower. There are a lot of connotations to the words leader and follower. Sometimes they're positive, sometimes they're negative, sometimes one is held above the other, and just all kinds of things. And I'm going to try to maybe, at least in the way I'm trying to use those words, sort of dispel some of those things, and also to help you understand what kind of gamer, tabletop gamer, you are, so that you can be a little bit more effective in your time spent, the free time that you have available, so that you can make better choices and basically come to the better outcome, which is obviously to have fun with your hobby. So let's get started, shall we? There are a lot of games out there in the tabletop wargaming miniatures space. There are obviously some that are much huger sellers than others, and you know, there are some companies that basically take many of the top 5 sales slots when you look at different companies who track that kind of stuff. And we all know who we're talking about here, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It is what it is. But there are also plenty of small companies who are producing really cool and interesting stuff to some people. Other people look at it and go, nah, I don't know about that. And then over here, there's another small company that these people are like, oh, I really like that. And these people over here are like, nah. There's a lot of choice. We're spoiled for choice. And because of that, you have to make some sort of determinations on which way you're going to go. Now, it's very different for us, and I've talked about this in the past, as tabletop gamers than it is for, say, video gamers. When a video gamer wants to play a multiplayer game, in most situations, you go to the little menu and you go boop, and then you're playing a multiplayer game with people who may be all over the world as far as you know. But it's usually, generally, not that difficult to find multiplayer games. Obviously, we, as tabletop gamers, for the most part, other than a few little different kind of programs that are out there to sort of bridge the gap when people are far away from each other. For the most part, we need to be across the table from each other, right? And right now, obviously, as it's COVID time and whatnot, we're in a situation where that's pretty difficult. You know, how long this will last depends on who you listen to, but it's going to be at least a while. Let's say that, just to make things very clear. It's going to be a while. So trying to figure out which direction you want to go when you have this time. You have been given all of this time in which to work on your building and painting and things like that for your miniatures project, so that when we can finally play again in face-to-face situations, you'll be ready to go. So you have to kind of determine at this point, well, are you a leader or a follower? Now, a leader in many situations is going to be the person who is interested in a game that's maybe not particularly popular. I like a game called Zona Alpha from Osprey, and it's a small little kind of skirmish game. Comes in one of those little blue books that Osprey does, kind of thin, but it's a cool little skirmish game taking place sort of like maybe in the 80s or 90s, but maybe now. It's hard to kind of really nail down. And it's based off of the concept that some aliens landed on our planet, did some things, and then left behind a bunch of trash, some of which is actually really cool, and some of us will kill us and turn us inside out. And so the gameplay itself is kind of bands of treasure hunters with submachine guns and body armor instead of cloaks and wizard hats and stuff like that, and something like Frostgrave. And we are kind of working to try to get these things and not get turned inside out and get them away so that we can then sell them and then spend that money on, I don't know, candy or whatever it is you spend money on. So it's not a very well-known game. It's made by Osprey, which is relatively major, but it's no Warhammer 40,000. It's no Age of Sigmar. But it is a skirmish game, which means it doesn't need a lot of models. So as a leader, what I can do, especially when given this time right now with the pandemic, is I can decide I want to be able to teach people how to play this game. I'm going to sit down and build at least 2, maybe 3, maybe even 4 different war bands. Sourcing bits, because it's one of those games that's also miniatures agnostic. You use whatever models you like. They don't have a models line that's attached to it. So I'm going to use maybe some stuff from Anvil Industry. I'm going to use some stuff from maybe some other companies. I'm going to mix together maybe even a little bit of Necromunda stuff with some like Puppets War, like shoulder pads and all kinds of crazy junk. Kit bash stuff together, have a good time with it. Work on terrain, build some ruined like cinder block walls and some like cinder block buildings and some dead trees and do all that kind of stuff so that when the time comes and someone's like, yeah, I'm just not sure what to do, right now, like, I don't know, like Saturday, what's going on? And I can be like, hey, I got this game. You should come over to my house or over to my studio or over to wherever, and we'll sit down and play. That's the part of being a leader. It's kind of like being an advocate for the game that you are trying to make maybe popular. It doesn't have to be popular. I talked about game advocacy years and years ago in a very old crusty video, Pachow. And it is about saying, look, I like this game. It's not particularly popular, so I guess I have to try to be the change I want to see in the world. And I'm going to build two forces and try to trick my friends into playing it with me, because they won't have to do anything except learn how to play it and then play. And maybe after 3 or 4 different friends that I've gone through, maybe one of them will be like, that's pretty cool. I want to buy that game too, and I want to also build some stuff. And that's how you build community. That's how you build a following for a game. Have you ever been to like an area that you're not familiar with, like a city that's on the other side of your state or the other side of your province or whatever? Or maybe you've talked to friends who live on the other side of the country, and they're all like, oh, nobody plays that game over here. Everybody over here plays this. And you're like, well, nobody plays that over by me. Everybody plays this game. And that happens a lot in tabletop gaming. And very frequently, it's the leaders that kind of start things off. Now, there's also followers. And again, there's nothing wrong with being a follower. A follower is a person who wants to basically play what's popular in their local area because they don't want to be a leader. They don't want to take the time to build all the stuff and get everything set up so that they can then play games or trick people into playing games. They just want to be able to go over to their friend's place and play this game that everybody plays. Or they want to go to the local shop or the local club and play this game that everybody plays. And there's nothing wrong with that. They get to then spend their time, instead of having to do all the extraneous stuff, they get to spend their time on just working on their army. I'm going to build this army knowing that it's very popular, not just this army, but I mean the game. This game is very popular in my local area, and so I'll always be able to find people to play with. I might have to go online and go to the local chat room, Discord, Facebook, whatever you got going on. You might have to do that, and then hook up to get a game at some place. Again, probably not right now, but in the future, that's the thing. What you can do right now, of course, if you're a follower, is get your army ready to go, which I've already talked about a couple of times in the past couple of videos. The fact that you know that, and I'm going to play this game because other people in my area are playing it and I want to play with them, gives you the freedom to sit down and say, I'm going to focus on this army and really get it, to where I want it to get, knock it out of the park. Maybe I'll build 2 armies for that game. Whatever you want to do, you have the time to do it. And the fact is that you'll be able to, knowing that you're the person who has to drive the ship, you'll be able to go along for the ride and play with the people in your local area. There's nothing wrong with being a follower, but there is a version of follower that can be a little problematic. And that is the follower who wants everybody else to do the work around them so that they can then follow. Now, let me put it to you this way. If you, as a follower, decide to see what's being played in your local area, let's say you just only play amongst your friends, talk to your friends and find out what they all like to play. We all like to play Age of Sigmar. Cool. Then you're going to play Age of Sigmar because you want to be able to play along with them. If you decide that you really want to play Flames of War and they all want to play Age of Sigmar, so you build yourself a Flames of War army and are like, why aren't you guys playing Flames of War? It's a so much better game and all that kind of stuff. That's not something that other people will probably enjoy. And so you're being a bit problematic there. What you're doing is you're saying, I want to just work on my army and I want everybody else in the world to revolve around what I'm doing. I want my local meta to line up with what I'm doing. I'm not going to line up with my local meta. And that's problematic. You're also saying, I don't want to build 2 forces for this game so I can teach you how to play. I just want to build one, and I expect you to build one and then play with me. You see what I'm saying? It's not the right way to do it. If you're going to follow, you have to follow probably at some point a leader. And again, there's nothing wrong with doing that. It makes it so that it's easier for you to figure things out so that you can go and have fun with the people in your local area. If you decide, I want to be follower, I want to do this amount of work, but I want everybody else to have to kind of steer around me and do what I want, that's not going to work out. And I'll be very honest, not all leaders are good either. I am, I think, kind of to some degree a lousy leader in that I enjoy being the leader, but I kind of don't care if anybody follows. Like, I will sit down and build myself, Zona Alpha, and I'll get it all set up, and I'll have little tiny buildings and little dead trees and little people and all this stuff, and I will be like, hey, you want to play? And I'll trick a friend into playing, and then they'll be like, yeah, that's cool. And then they probably won't be interested in playing again. And then I'll trick another friend into it, and eventually I will run through my friends, and then no one else will want to play, potentially because it's just not a game that is something that they're interested in. And there's nothing wrong with them not being interested in something. It's just you have to understand sometimes as a leader, and this is kind of where I falter a bit, sometimes you have to understand not everybody thinks like you. You know what I mean? There are times when there's like a special food, like some sort of flavor of ice cream that I really love, and then all of a sudden they don't make it anymore. And it's because I was one of the 3 people that really loved it, evidently, and nobody else did in sales or sales. So being a leader and just deciding to lead in games and just go out there and be an advocate until it turns out that nobody cares, and then just, trudging forward, there's something to be said about, picking on your principles and following them. But eventually you'll be playing by yourself, which honestly, to be fair, with Zone Alpha, there are now solo play rules. So I'm set. But I've done this before where I've decided this is very cool. I've tried to get people involved, and you have to know when to cut bait, because sometimes you just don't pull in extra people. You don't get new players. And then you're just like, well, I had fun building and painting. I had fun in the games that we did. Maybe you can repurpose those models to be used in a different game. That's one of the things that's great about miniatures agnostic gaming. So keep that in mind. But understanding that if you're a leader and nobody follows, then it's maybe time to change track a little bit. And I need to figure out how to be better at that myself. So it's important for you to understand within your tabletop gaming thing, are you a leader or are you a follower? And then knowing that, understanding, knowing yourself, being self-aware helps you to move forward efficiently with your time. If you are constantly changing tack and like, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to switch to this game, and I'm going to switch to this game, and you never get anything finished, that probably wears on you and it kind of bums you out. But if you decide, look, the people in my local area like to play this game, and I'm fine with playing it, it's not my favorite, but I enjoy it well enough because I enjoy their company, then follow along and do that. And then you can work on your army and really get to the best of your ability with it, and then have games to play. But if you're like, I don't like this, I don't like that, I really think this is cool, and I think other people will dig it, absolutely, become a leader. You're going to have to, like I said, build both sides and go through that stuff and do some advocacy to teach other people about the game. And hopefully, if you're lucky, unlike me, you'll come across something that people will actually dig, and hopefully maybe they'll join in.